Hello, everyone. It's Graham Cafe with My Music, the first one of the week. It's a Tuesday, but it feels like a Monday because we had one of those bank holiday things in between. That's really messed with my brain. I don't know about you. What about you two guys? Has it messed with your brain as well?
Yeah, we don't understand bank holidays because
because of our line of work, I suppose. It's just like I'm confused.
Yeah, makes no difference.
Absolutely. Confused.com. If you're confused out there, apologies. Just relax. We're going to play some music. We'll come back. We'll talk, and then you'll all be okay. I promise you. Well, that was fantastic, wasn't it? That was the wonderful Analog Trash video there. If you haven't checked out Analog Trash and their website and all of the artists that are on there, please do. The address is down the bottom. There you go. Fill your boots. Natalie, Rich, talk to me. How are you?
We're good. Yeah, we're feeling
very good. Yeah, we're sort of right in the midst of going forward with a lot of music releases. So it's just sort of wrapping our head around doing that as, independent artists. So running the show.
And what do you do when you're not being artists as well?
We've just been watching Succession. Just finished up on the final episode of the final season. I don't want to give anything away in case anyone else watches Succession, but it was mad. It was absolutely
crazy.
Yeah, so we like watching TV shows for a lot of inspiration, really. Watching X-Files a lot recently.
There's like a slim window of time when we're not being artists, I guess, because it's pretty much like all we do.
It's pretty full time. So
that's a fortunate position to find yourself in some ways. A lot of artists, out bricklaying during the day, and then doing that at night. How does that work for you? How are you managing to navigate the waters of independent music production without having to slave over a hot stove during the day?
We managed to pay the bills from live, doing other things within music. So separate from Wynona, which is its own kind of self-contained project. We do other things. We work, just doing kind of cover work, and we've done some sync work for adverts, and it's like a little bit of this and a bit of that.
It's sort of the hustle.
The hustle.
The hustle.
Within the music business.
But we're lucky that it's worked for us.
That's nice though, actually, that you can keep it in the music business though. At least it's got one finger on there, and I guess you meet people as you go along doing that as well.
100%. 100%.
There's a downside. There's when you're doing music for your job, and then you're trying to do music for your own creative pursuit. Your
passion.
You can get burnt out, can't you? It's like that's and that does happen. So that's very real sometimes. It's just when you're doing music all the time.
It can feel a bit like a busman's holiday sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I just get the urge to go and lay some bricks. And
no, how do you keep it fresh then when you get to the band situation, when you get to Wynona, and that's you put that head on? How do you what do you do to initially sort of like kick your head into the right area?
I mean, to be honest, I think.
Apart from watching Succession.
After we've had a little break from and watched Succession. I would say, honestly, when we really started going full steam ahead with Wynona was when we sort of landed on a sound that we thought, oh my God, this is the sound we've been looking for. This is what we wanted to sound like for a couple of years now. And we just weren't quite there. So we finally discovered our sound in which we really love. We love living in it. We are passionate about it. And I think just that in general keeps us going. It's like we've found our little niche and we just want to live in it. keep it going.
Okay, so let's get geeky for a minute. What are the elements that make up the quintessential Wynona sound? Okay,
I mean, it's got to be sort of all the early noughties, jangly guitar pop bops. I mean, you've got like Lush, the Sundays, the Pretenders, like all of these amazing artists that just had like a lightness to them. I know it sounds weird, but they weren't overly heavy or overly overbearing. It was just this really light, lifting, jangly sound.
Yeah.
Like when
it's all of those classic guitar pedals then. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for us, it's like it's just so organic, and it's like we want to write really big, really accessible pop songs. You know, traditionally written like simple, like this is what you get, but then deliver it with real instruments and just an element of like imperfection, I guess, that you get from like acoustic instruments and and you know, we did experiment in the studio with more electronic stuff, but at times when we were on the search for the sound, but there's just something you can't beat when it just feels like a little bit imperfect.
Yeah. So if you're using, it depends on the instruments, of course, but if you're using a guitar, they can go out of tune.
That happens.
If you're not quantizing, presumably you try and avoid things like quantizing your music and stuff like that. Then
it's things along the journey that all these tools that are offered to you with all the amazing kind of software you have. It's actually learning to just not rely on them so much. It's difficult because I'd say we're perfectionists, like searching for imperfection, and that's a difficult thing.
Which is a really difficult thing
because you have to let go of that perfection. We grew up on quantizing and auto-tune. We never really used auto-tune, but like we've grown up on the software that really helps you. Synthesizers and like as in software synthesizers on the computer. Not even the analog stuff because that's just so expensive.
We've had to sort of rein ourselves in a little bit,
just like
to be more imperfect.
You see, I grew up with tape and stuff like that. So unfortunately, everything had to be imperfect. I guess we were trying half the time to make it sound better, there's a limit to what you can do.
Those imperfections though from that era that makes those songs so real. There's just something so real about them and human. It's not necessarily there's definitely a school of thought of, there's people trying to chase back to going to tape and that kind of stuff, and like you can get tape emulation plugins and things like that, but it's like that's not, you think by just throwing a tape kind of hiss on your song you're going to get this kind of magic, but you're not. The magic really comes from that kind of one take or minimal takes, kind of real. That's what you've got to chase,
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I remember like, because when I first started, like things like sequencers were really expensive. To do anything like that was, you needed a bit of money, and then so everything was like, you've got to press that button now. At this point in the song to set that bit off, so that was great because there was a lot of tension in that. I think that comes over in the music in a way when you have got to hit things at the right time or start things off at the right time. It's like you can feel that could go wrong at any point. And that's what's nice about it. It makes it better live, doesn't it?
That I was just gonna, I was gonna say, obviously, like it has a big effect live. You know, I guess if you are using sequences on stage, there is that like element of surprise of like anything could happen, or you could be slightly behind. But I guess with us, because we are using the organic instruments, it's like just guitars, live drums, you know, all live vocal. Like we don't use any, you know, vocal tracks or anything. We have done in the past with other projects, but I think, to be honest, like we're just sort of starting, we're sort of doing like a grassroots thing again. We're like starting from the beginning, sort of organic sound, and then if there is a need for anything else on top, then we'll look into that at a future date. But for now,
right now
like
we're stripping it back.
We're kind of just enjoying like being really like rough around the edges, and like, you know, it is.
Now let's not be rude about this, but some of the bands that you mentioned, you two were too young to remember them first time round. So who got you into that stuff? Who kind of nudged you in that direction?
I mean, so it's kind of, we're a bit of an anomaly. And I can never say that word. Anomaly. So like my family weren't crazy into music, or they weren't musicians or anything. And you had the same. We had the same sort of upbringings where our families weren't very musical. So I think when we were younger, I think we both had a similar personality where we sort of.
You went looking for music because it wasn't there.
Yeah. Vision to music, because we didn't have that as much in our, you know, younger years.
So I totally relate to that. Totally relate to it. I mean, we it falls into two categories, the people that we have on the show, where it's either someone's been completely immersed in music from a young age. Like, you know, my mum played this and my dad did this, and my great uncle was a famous musician, and we always had instruments in the house or whatever. Or it was people like me, where it's like my mum and dad had the worst record collection in the history of record collections, I think. Right? I think there were 5 albums in the house. You know, Beatles, Bach, and Beethoven does bossa nova was one of them. The New Seekers. The greatest hits of the Carpenters, some religious guy called Ishmael, which was bonkers, and the Smurfs, and that was it. That was the entirety of the record collection in the house, right? So it made you kind of venture out. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it was like
some more depth.
Yeah. You'd gravitate towards friends that had music collections.
Yeah. There's always an outside influence. For me, it was my cousin. Like my parents were similar. They just weren't very musical, like, at all. They just didn't really. I don't really remember them listening to much music. I mean, my mum likes music, but I mean, I don't remember any early memories. But my cousin, he introduced me to. He made me a mixtape. This is back when people would literally make mixtapes. And it was like all punk. So it was all like Rancid, NoFX, The Clash. I guess at the time it would have been sort of contemporary punk and like and classic. And like, so I was like this 12-year-old kid with a blue mohawk at Reading Festival. That was like music. And like, probably I've come a long way from that now, but that's what started everything. And, you know, those bands. So
that's wonderful. And what about you? Now, listen, whenever you get a singer on the show, I have to ask the singer, you know, when did you discover your voice?
I feel like for a musician, I actually found it quite late. So I'd always played instruments when I was like quite young. So like when I was 10, I think my first instrument was clarinet. And then straight after I was like, oh no. Oh, I don't know, this clarinet won't do. And then I moved on to piano. So I had this little sort of old school like Casio keyboard, and then from there my mum was like, okay, maybe we'll get you like a electric piano. Let's get you an actual real one. So I think me and my siblings got like a piano for Christmas, and then piano was just like my obsession for like 4 years. And then it was only around 14 that I started sort of singing, and with like a group of sort of girls from a club that I went, you know, and attended. And it was from there where sort of some of my teachers were like, oh, like Nat, you actually have quite a nice voice. Like, would you want to do more? Do you want to do?
Did you do the school musicals?
Not the school musicals, but I was in sort of like a theatre group outside of school. So I did end up doing a lot of singing at those sort of theatre clubs, which is quite funny looking back because I'm kind of more musical theatre trained. And then as soon as I discovered that my school had bands when I was 14, I was like, right, I'm joining a band. I joined my first band when I was 14. It was probably about 14 where I started actually taking singing seriously. Before that, I didn't even know I could sing. I didn't even know.
I was 14 when I joined my first band, and it was mainly because I had words. Was that a similar thing for you, or where do lyrics etc. come into all of this for you?
That's funny. I always love talking about sort of vocal melodies and lyrics as two separate sort of characters coming together or personalities coming together. I was always a melody and harmony artist. I always had a melody or I had a harmony or I had all these visions, but I couldn't quite figure out the lyrics when I was that age. So some of my lyrics were extremely questionable at that age. Some songs I would love to just push under a rug somewhere and never let anyone listen to them.
I'm probably more the lyrics guy.
But yeah, maybe. Rich, you studied English lit, and
that comes into it.
I think you're quite a natural writer, and that's sort of helped me become a better writer, sort of seeing how you do things. Reading.
Rich knew what iambic pentameter was then.
Yeah, well, actually, I came into it through lyrics as well. Like, because I think when I was in my first band, maybe a little bit younger. I think I was like 11 or 12, and we were like 12-year-old kids singing about bringing down the American government from Hampshire in England. It was like Green Day, American Idiot era. So. And that was what kind of got me into it, was words and the guitar, and so that's quite carried through. And even now, like, I have a lot of fun with Wynona because I'm writing the lyrics for Natalie, and like obviously we collaborate, but sometimes if it's just me writing, then I know, well, I'm not going to be singing it, so it gives you a lot of creative freedom when you're almost playing like a character that's real, someone that you know, and you kind of semi-construct, and yeah, it's been really fun for me not having to like sing the words myself and put myself out there. So I found that kind of freeing.
I think, yeah, I mean, not only is there a freedom in that, but also there's a sense where you can explore things that you wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable coming out of your own mouth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What are some of the things that you are writing about?
Most of the songs tend to be like most songs, it's kind of relationships.
A lot of it comes from that. I'm not a particularly like political person. I just think it's bad for the heart to get involved with it. I think stay out of it.
Yeah, we don't. My 12-year-old self would be disappointed in me for not
going back to basics.
But don't you think that's kind of like every 12-year-old boy, really? Because I think part of it is kind of your angst. It's probably all of those testosterone kind of building up in the body at that sort of age and whatever, and you just really want to smash down the system, whatever the system is. You're not really even sure what the system.
You know what it is. You haven't lived in it.
No, exactly. But it's bad, whatever it is, and you just need to wear black and smash everything up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I do want to go into and I do want to write about. But I think it needs its time and it needs its place because we're still a relatively new band. And I think for us to come straight in and talk about, quite harsh realities with our jangly light sound, I think there needs to be a time and a place and a bit of growth for lyrical progression. And I think as it stands, talking about relationships, but in a quite honest and truthful way, is a good start for us, and then I think we can always go into some more.
Well, do you know what? I think that's a very sensible approach. I've just done another live this morning, completely nothing to do with music, etc. But we were talking about marketing, and was saying actually that a lot of sectors, or a lot of people trying to market stuff in a lot of sectors, they get it wrong in that initially, whilst people don't really know about what someone does, they wade in with, you know, the higher level stuff, and it kind of puts people off. But it's actually a really sensible approach to take kind of more of a not a mainstream approach in terms of sound necessarily, but a mainstream approach in terms of subject matter or whatever, so that actually you're more accessible to everybody to begin with, so that actually more people get to know you.
Yeah.
And then when people get to know you, that's when you can bring that in. And I think that is the right thing to do in a way, because you've then got at that point you've then got the audience and you've got the respect, so you're actually going to be able to achieve more with that. Is that how you feel with that?
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's a universal truth about singing about relationships. It's a tried and tested, you know, it's not only accessible, well, it's just accessible for anyone in any language from any background. And, you know, we do comb over our lyrics quite a lot. And you see bands sometimes saying, like, we're going to take on this subject, but it can seem kind of disingenuous sometimes, where it's just like, you know, you didn't really delve into that subject. You just used it very on a superficial level. And it's like, if we wanted to take on something that we were passionate about, I think we would take it a lot more seriously, but then we'd hold ourselves to a much higher standard and probably never finish the song. So like we do sing about kind of, well, is that their roads kind of well traveled, but I do think we're quite proud of our lyrics a lot of the time. And sometimes they don't need to be too kind of verbose, and I don't know, sometimes they can just be simple, you know, keep them simple, and it works. But yeah, we definitely like spend a lot of time with our lyrics, I think.
Well, your music stood out for me. I mean, you know, it's nice to listen to, but it's got an edginess to it, which is always important, right? And it's that edginess that pulls people in. You know, do you think that's missing sometimes in the modern pop world? That kind of, I don't know what you call it. Simon Cowell would have called it the X Factor, but that's bollocks. But that edginess, you know, where is that missing?
Well, yeah, that's that. I guess that X Factor now has kind of come to symbolize the opposite of what it was meant. I would say music that isn't edgy, music that is quantized, music that is synthetic and not, you know, just too perfect.
Is everything that show's about. Yeah,
and I do think we listen to a lot of music. We do pay attention, and we listen to music that's not necessarily just our favorite band. So we're not in some sort of like echo chamber. We listen to like New Music Friday and the charts and stuff. And and there is some sense to me that there's just something sometimes missing. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's too much of the X Factor. Maybe they just need a little bit less.
Yeah. No, I think what it is it's too much of a formula.
Yeah, that's good way
and not enough, you know, not enough heartfelt mistakes, which is where it came in the first place. You know, and I think that's great. You know, if you've got, don't get us wrong, anybody. If anybody's listening and you want to check out Wynona's music, you probably won't spot any mistakes as such, but it's the subtleties, all right? You have to appreciate it's that, you know, what they're doing is quite edgy, right? It's very hard to explain. Once you listen to it, you'll know exactly what we're all talking about, all right? So please do check it out. What's the ambition for both of you?
We're kind of just winding up this toy and then seeing where it goes.
We've sort of began to wind it up, and we haven't quite unleashed all of our sort of our catalogue, shall we say. We've been sitting on a lot of music for, I would probably say, too long now, and it's at the point where I think because of where the music industry stands at the moment, we can now afford to just go a bit nuts and release everything anytime we want. That it's sort of like anything we want to do, it's kind of, you know, it's in our hands now to do that.
Is there something that you feel that you need or would, well, not even necessarily need, because I think you're determined enough people to actually make it happen, but is there something that someone or something that would really help, push that process forward now? Is it a second pair of eyes in terms of or ears in terms of a producer? Is it, do you need help with a particular PR company to get behind you, or just more people booking it? What would help now at this stage?
I mean, we're lucky. We've got a really good team. We've been worked with some incredible people already. Honestly, Wynona's only been going for like 2 years, and we've just worked and collaborated with so many great people in PR, in radio, in production, in all aspects. And so we've really got like a good sense of the industry that we probably didn't have before. But I still think the thing we're probably missing the most is just access to an audience, and it's just not. We just haven't found it yet. So, and
being in a band is expensive.
Yeah.
Going to studio sessions, getting the mixes back, getting the masters back. The press that you need behind to back the music. It's all expensive stuff, and I think as a self-run band, we're not under any label, anything like that. It's obviously that financial issue as well. With most working class bands, I think you do sometimes need that extra push to help elevate your music, to lift it to more people so they can see you.
Well, of course, one way that all bands over the years have managed to get more of an audience is to support people. Who would be your dream support slot? If you were the support slot for somebody, who would that be? So,
well, anyone in the world.
Anyone in the world, yeah.
Are we going dead or alive, or is it just alive?
Well, I think in this instance we ought to do it alive, just because that way we can tag them in, and it might happen. It's.
I mean, you've really put us on the spot now.
I mean, I'll go big, probably like Coldplay, obviously.
I was going to say that, and then I hesitated. I was like, maybe The Cure.
The Cure, yeah. There's because they're still touring.
It's a really hard one, because again, like we're thinking from like a business point of view of like which audience for which enjoy our band the most,
because it does make a difference. Because if you step out in front of a big audience and you're not the right fit for the bill,
it can absolutely
more harm than it did good. Like we've been to see bands, and the opening band have just been the wrong pick, just like because you're paying as a consumer a fair amount of money these days, not only for the tickets but to get there, to buy drinks.
We saw an act. We won't sort of name anyone, but we saw quite a big act recently, and they had an artist come on before them, and it was just completely like the opposite. And I mean, it's fine, and everyone likes different music, but people were talking while they were performing, and they were sort of like all drinking and not paying attention, and you think, well, that's why, because
I think you have to know your audience.
Exactly.
In that situation. I think if you've got an audience who are going to appreciate music and be quite intense with it in that way, and actually are going to like stop the talking and put the phones down and everything else, then you can do that. But if you're and that probably lends itself to someone that's more musical in that respect, if you know what I mean, as opposed to someone that you perhaps go to see to dance or thrash along to or whatever. I think if you're a band where part of the process of why people want to go is because they want to have a good night out, and they want to yes, they want to listen and immerse themselves in the music, but they do want to have a dance and whatever. It's got to fit. To fit. Otherwise, it's
it's just like not worth. Yeah, it's not worth it for the artist and for the fan base. Yeah, it needs to be a right click.
And the support band isn't going to get as much. Okay, they might be playing with this band with a name and an audience, but they can't guarantee that audience are going to then be invested afterwards. So it's just kind of a wasted excursion for everyone. Whereas like if you match it up a little bit better,
it's a match made in heaven.
Yeah,
isn't
exactly.
It?
So, yeah, we found.
Okay, well, I'm gonna change that around a little bit then, because obviously Coldplay, I mean, that's brilliant, and The Cure, you know. Although you'd never put those two bands on together, would you? I mean, there's a great example. You would not put those two bands on together.
But then we say Coldplay, you probably mean with thinking early Coldplay.
That's true. Yeah, like if they ever toured like the Parachutes album or something,
exactly.
like
that's when we fell in love with Coldplay.
But I mean, would they? I don't know.
Look, I wouldn't turn them down now.
Thanks,
so let's go a slightly different route with that then. Who else out there have you seen that you might want to share a headline slot with, who you think would really make a solid evening's entertainment?
We saw Beach Bunny recently.
Yes, I mean, we really love a band called Beach Bunny. They're Chicago based, and really cool band. We actually did try and ask if we could support them.
Now we're getting there.
Playing a London show.
This is one of those weird things where they were like a band that we like really loved, like, and they're pretty well adored, like
within the indie world, yeah, for sure.
You know, and we dropped our first single, and they just followed us on Instagram like the day after or the day of or something, and I remember just being like absolutely blown away that like a band from Chicago that we absolutely adore could even come across our music, let alone like it enough to give us a follow, or you know, considering it didn't have that much of a reach, the songs, like, they haven't really taken off on platform like Spotify and things like that.
But the fact they made the effort, they found us,
I don't know how they found us,
with the single, and then went, I'll follow them. And I was so smitten. I was like, oh my god, my favorite band had just followed me. I was like, what the hell?
But what you've got to remember there is musicians are always fans of music.
Yeah,
always.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how big you get, you're always looking for inspiration, aren't you? You're always looking for inspiration. You're always looking to find that new thing to listen to. So don't be so surprised, you know.
Big Thief was another band we saw.
Oh, brilliant band.
One of our favorite bands. Not like there are elements of their sound.
Again, whether we'd be the right fit, you just don't know. But I mean, they are going a bit. Well, they in their last few songs we saw, especially when we saw them live, their newer stuff was going kind of heavier, and we really loved it. Yeah. That's
fantastic. Great answers. Listen, you've been brilliant guests. Thank you for coming along, talking a little bit about your music. Now, for people that watch this throughout the day, and you know, go, oh, I've suddenly discovered some new people that I'd love to know more about their music. Where's the best place to go to find your music, as from your point of view? Not from the world's point of view, but from your point of view.
Instagram to start with.
I was going to say a different one.
I
mean, if you want to help our streaming, you know, the plays, it would be on Spotify. So yeah, Wynona Band or Wynona on Spotify.
Get on there, do the streams all day long.
Songs like 2-3 times each.
Just put it on repeat.
Yeah.
Add it to a playlist. That's the thing to do.
Add us to your playlist. Like, it means a lot. And like we check through like our Spotify for artists. We're always curious of like how well received the songs are, who's listening, what countries are listening.
We love seeing some of the playlists that it gets added to as well. They can be hilarious,
they're brilliant.
Some of the user ones. But to be honest, we're probably most present on Instagram. Is where you can like actually reach us, and from there we
Instagram and TikTok.
TikTok.
We actually post a lot on TikTok.
And
that's slowly growing a fan base now, which is really good.
That's good. Well, I'm new to TikTok, but you'll notice I've already TikToked with you.
I didn't see. Well,
I have actually done I've done a duet on TikTok with you, so there you go. There's one to add to your collection, and folks, if you enjoy Wynona's music, you can do exactly the same. You know,
definitely. And you know, we're all very close. We're all family on there. It's like, just join in if you want to have a chat with us. We're always there. It's just a little bit of a hangout spot for us.
Well, listen, you've been brilliant. Thanks for coming on, chatting my music. Folks, go and check out Wynona, and by this time next year they'll be absolutely massive. So your wish that you'd done it now, right? So press the button, as it were, as the Sugar Babes once said, and get them onto your playlist and make some magic happen. That would be fantastic. Until next time, it's been wonderful having you here, folks. I hope you've enjoyed your little chat.
Yes,
Thank
we have.
you.
Yeah.
Do come back, as I say, when you're world famous, and tell us what it was like playing with Coldplay. Guys, if you've enjoyed this, share, subscribe, do all of those wonderful things that make social media so exciting. And until next time, bye for now.